background, some of the rough topic background, we're just gonna break it down. Good looking out.
You're live.
Like what?
You're live.
Good evening, family. Welcome to another edition of the Black Man's Roundtable. I'm your host and moderator, Rodney Butler. Before we get started, I want to first apologize for starting a little late today. We are affected by the hurricane, just like a lot of the people in Georgia. We have people coming in, people coming out. So just know that it might get a little loud in here today, but we hope that our background-proof microphones help with that. So without further ado, today we are going to be doing our second edition of the Divine Nine fraternities for the local the local leaders in the Divine Nine fraternity here in the Metro Atlanta area. And we're going to be discussing a number of topics today that we believe are near and dear to your heart. We have a panel of I want to say experts in this field. Some of them are actual experts in individual fields, but some of them are just very, very knowledgeable because they get to work within the community with a lot of different people. So with that being said, I'm going to introduce myself once again. I am your host and moderator, Rodney Butler, and I belong to Phi Beta Sigma fraternity of the Lambda Sigma chapter here in Atlanta. I'm going to throw it over real quick to my co-moderator, Maurice Hurd.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Maurice Hurley. I am a member of Alpha Phi Alpha Fraternity Incorporated, and I am with the Rho Pi Lambda chapter as their outgoing financial secretary. And we are glad you all are joining us this evening, and glad for our panelists to be here also. So we're going to go ahead and get started with our
real quick, Maurice, I'm going to go ahead on and let the panel introduce themselves.
Absolutely.
I would introduce our panels, but I tell you, some of their titles and some of their bios go so deep that I'll get lost in doing it. But what I want to do first, being a host has its privileges, so I want to make sure that I start first with my chapter president, Robert Easton.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. My name, of course, as he said, is Robert Easton. I'm president of Lambda Sigma Chapter Phi Beta Sigma fraternity, and I am a 51-year member of my organization.
All right, we'll just go right around like this.
All right. Good evening, everyone. I'm LeVar Thompson. I am a proud member of the Carrollton Douglasville Alumni Chapter of Kappa Alpha Psi Fraternity Incorporated. I am also the Panhandle President for National Parliamentary Council of Douglas County.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Bobby Fryer. I am a brother of Kappa Alpha Psi Fraternity Incorporated. I am also the immediate past president for Colmark of the Carrollton Douglasville Alumni Chapter of Kappa Alpha Psi Fraternity Incorporated in this area.
Good evening. I'm Richard Duncan, member of Lambda Sigma Chapter Phi Beta Sigma fraternity, and I'm the immediate past president of the life members of Phi Beta Sigma.
Good afternoon. My name is Martin Raxton, member of Kappa Alpha Psi for 39 years. I am currently a member of the Alpharetta Smyrna Alumni Chapter, and I also serve as the president and CEO of the Crimson Political Action Council.
And I'm Dr. Sean Brooks Nee, and I am the Georgia State Director for Iota Phi Theta Fraternity Incorporated.
I think we're okay.
Thank you, gentlemen. We appreciate you doing those wonderful introductions.
And Maurice, real quick, I'll go ahead on and let everybody know the topics. If you don't already know, the topics we'll be discussing today. We have two panels. We're going to be talking about the impact of structural bias and racism and discrimination on marginalized communities in the areas of work, housing, education, voter rights, voter suppression, health and health care, the wealth gap, and criminal justice. Maurice, I think you have the first topic.
I do have the first one. So the first topic that I have is work. How the impact of structural racism and discrimination and bias affects us when it comes to work. So gentlemen, who would like to be first to answer that? How does it affect us when it comes down to work?
I'll go ahead and take that. So one of the things I would say in regards to work is we have to ensure that our men are educated and going through either a formal education, some type of structured training, apprenticeships, and to ensure that the jobs is there. So it's one thing to get trained, but it's also another thing to have livable wages. One of the organizations that I work with is with Just Capital. And Just Capital really looks at opportunities for individuals to get paid livable wages and to get paid more often, especially those that are marginalized, low and moderate income individuals. But to be a man goes to work.
That's right.
And I think everyone on this panel understands that hard work pays off so we can support and provide for our families.
But in that light, just the nature of this topic, I would say that creates a problem simply because those individuals start off with a bit of a strike against them. They even are going through the process to try to get to a level that they can provide for their family because they are seen or viewed in a certain light, or even they are interacted with individuals who have the ability to offer opportunities for them. You find that they are often put to the side, not given the opportunity. How do we get over that hump? I don't know. Because even those individuals who are college-educated men, and all of us are college-educated men, we find ourselves coming into workplaces that are still being dominated by individuals who are looking for like people themselves. We find ourselves in going into workplaces where we don't know anyone or don't have a leg up. And we find ourselves, even when we do get in, not being able to fit in because of the stigma or the stereotype that's still associated with so many of us. They won't give us an adequate chance. Some people say, oh no, that's not the case. If you got the skills, it'll happen. But we know too well that isn't the case. That is the case. And that's one of the reasons why I think there is such a push among minorities for self-empowerment through entrepreneurship. They really believe that they can find finally that opportunity where I can be my own person and be able to just project and do what I'm capable of doing.
I'm going to add to that. The stigma exists early on. You see it in middle school, you see it in elementary school, you see it in high school. That stigma that you're talking about specifically is already there. What we have to do is work as a community to help alleviate that stigma, to educate to show our students and our community that education is okay. And that is one of the things that, when you talk about workforce development, you talk about putting African Americans in those types of positions, we have to erase the stigma, but we also have to build up the confidence in feeling like they actually belong at the table now. Because we've been told that we're competing against a number of different people. We're competing against Hispanics, we're competing against other African Americans, other ethnic groups in our community. And that is one of the stigmas, that's one of the parts of the stigmas that makes it hard and sometimes makes it confrontational. So when you really talk about trying to really move people into that arena of actually having a job.
What I want to also add up to this is the informal social activities that take place in the work environment, because many times people socialize with people that look like them or act like them, and with that informal structure, business takes place. And so with that, you're left out of it if you're not part of that in crowd that's actually controlling the flow of things with it. So we have to also be concerned about the informal structures that organizations have in their work site, so that you can also take care of the business with it without necessarily being penalized or stigmatized for that. And if you want to associate with other people, you should be able to do so without feeling that you're being stigmatized or crucified by your own people.
Any other comments?
Yes, I did real quick. I think we have to be careful too as well. Pay attention to what's happening in the news. So we know that diversity, equity, and inclusion is being stripped away by the Supreme Court. And I personally, I'm a real estate appraiser. I've owned my own real estate business for 23 years. So I only represent 4% of appraisers are black in the country. So imagine what I see on a daily basis at times as regards to home values and the issues that come up that they bring up that I say, hold on, wait a second. A quick example was I had a conference call last week with Fannie Mae, and one of the people was asking about, well, should we include crime statistics in our report? And I had to raise my hand politely and say, why would you do that? If you do it, you better be doing it for every appraisal that you do, because if you don't, you've already identified a certain area that you're saying, oh, we need to worry about crime statistics here. And I had to let them know, don't fool yourself. Even in the most wealthiest of communities, there's crime. Okay, just because you may not see it out in the open, it doesn't mean that the person down the block is not doing something illegal. So I have to kind of share those things and bring the light to them, like these implicit biases that may be out there, because that's become an issue in the appraisal industry regarding bias on values. I know y'all heard the stories about it. That's those examples.
Oh, one thing I would add is I think that we've done a fantastic job of identifying that it is a problem. There is disparities in the workforce, and us as leaders, what is next for us to do to try to help with this situation. And I think some of the things that I've seen and the opportunity that we have right now to grow on is we've been doing things like career fairs. I know at the conclave that Kappa's had, as well as the conclave that we just had, we had career fairs that those and brothers could come in and we had companies come in and they had hiring on the spot. So these are opportunities for us to continue to grow on, is train up the young and the youth and get them into a position where they can have opportunities to get employment.
We also have to make sure that wherever we are in our careers, whether we're still working, we're retired, getting ready to retire, we have to play a part also. There are a lot of folks that say, well, hey, I just started here and I don't want to ruffle any feathers. Wherever you are, you're a role model. You can step up and say, hey, leadership, hey, management, this is a great opportunity for us to help the next generation coming along. And I'll use me as an example. At my company that I'm at, which has been a little over a year, I noticed they have this associate program for some engineers. And I noticed how, I noticed the group that they had, and I said, I'm going to mentor that young man, that young lady, that young lady, because I wanted to make sure they knew they had somebody going to ask those questions of, when I go out in the field and I'm talking to other customers to sell them things, what are the things I need to stay away from? What are the things I need to make sure I do? So we have to step in, even though it might not be a formal mentors, you step in and you mentor those young men and women, and you let your employer know, hey, look, I want to mentor them, but then I also want to see us do these things to help bring more diversity or bring more people that look like us into the workforce. So good responses, Joe. We appreciate it. Right.
All right. I got the next one, Maurice. We're going to talk about education in the way of how it impacts structural racism and discrimination and bias on our marginalized communities. Education. I want to actually narrow this one down a little bit because it's so broad, but then there are educational decisions being made that are actually affecting all of our organizations, right? And where we want to put our money and where we want to put our opportunities at. So with that being said, I want to talk about education, and we're going to talk about critical racism. Okay, from what I understand critical racism is critical racism, we have been duped to believe that it is teaching our K-12 kids something. Critical racism is only taught in graduate school and primarily law school. So I don't know any first graders that are studying anything about theory in the first place. So just the word theory itself, takes it out. But we've been duped, okay? And so therefore, some of these states have, taken out the truth about history and labeling it with some kind of critical racism. They knew it would work because CRT has the word racism in it. So that being said, let's go around the table and get your thoughts. Anybody jump in on critical race theory in education?
I think again, it's again one of them rope-a-dope situations.
Yeah.
I don't know how it is over the last 5 to 10 years, these catchphrases have been able to literally been redefined and put their own twist on them. You know what I'm saying? Critical race theory. I don't think anybody, if you ask the average person about it, they don't have a clue what it's all about. In fact, I had to go to Google myself and try to get at the heart of this, and I'm realizing, okay, why would we even be discussing that when we're talking about K-12, or even in many cases, a standard college curriculum. Because when you get into the critical race theory, first of all, I wonder if you try to structure a class, how do you grade it? Ain't no right or wrong answer. It's more of theory and more of opinions. You see what I'm saying? But somehow people have put these catchphrases and have created evil associated with it. How do we get out of it? The only way I see we're going to get out of this problem is we're going to have to get more people in leadership roles and just simply try to flip that narrative and try to educate people. No, this is not correct. We need to move that away. That has nothing to do with. Don't even consider that. You know. But that once it gets embedded in someone's mind, it's very hard to get it out of there. So that's our dilemma. How do we move it out of out of the whole psychic of people and the way they think about it? We shouldn't even be discussing it from K to 12 or even in the college level.
And I would say, one of the things that we have the opportunity to do, we need to be present at the school board meetings.
Yes.
Thank you.
We need to be holding elected office as superintendents, as school board administrators. And we need to help to drive that narrative.
Yes.
And not allow others to drive it for us. And what galls me is that we have parents that's more concerned about coming out for Friday night football than going and having conversations with the teachers, the principals, and the administrators in the school system. We can change that narrative just like you said, but we have to take the leadership on. And we have to show what the curriculum should be, what's really important to ensure that our students are prepared to assume subsequent life and to have good skill sets so we can compete as a United States of America.
As a 23-year educator, critical race theory has never been a subject matter that we have ever taught. I've taught in high school, middle school, elementary. I've taught in over 7 different states. It has never been an issue. I've never had any type of curriculum or anything. I've had master's degrees, all different types of levels of conversation, discourse with people from all over the country, from charter schools to public schools. Critical race theory has only become an issue when they felt like it was something that it could be a catch, like you said, a catchphrase, or something that could be weaponized and politicized for someone's own personal agenda. Every teacher I know, every classroom I've ever walked into, what's true is facts. Teachers are teaching facts. Teachers are making engagement fun for kids and building relationships with them. And that's what education is about. Critical race theory is divisive. It's used as a tool to be divisive, to take our minds off those really important, like you said, getting our parents involved in the school and getting them thinking that we have to weaponize the term of education. So I definitely think that there are things that we can do. It starts by having this type of conversation as men, yes, but also making sure that we are also inside those schools, have those conversations with our teachers and, like you said, our superintendents, and holding them accountable for it as well.
Let me add on this. History is written by the winners.
Yes, sir.
And so think about it like this. If history is written by the winners, why would the winner tell the story and make themselves out to be the bad guy?
Yeah.
You wouldn't. You just wouldn't do that. So there's an effort being put to make sure that certain things are not told. Like, I think it was just recently people found out about Tulsa. I mean, I've known about it for a long time because I'm a history teacher and I teach African American studies. But it was only recently, the 100-year anniversary came up a couple years ago, where people were shocked to find out about Tulsa and what happened there. And it's not in history books. That is left out of history books. Those types of things, it is important that we know our history. Because if we don't know our history, we're bound to repeat it.
But I think there's a confusion, and that's the problem we have with this whole thing of critical race theory. People want to make it synonymous with history, and it's not about that. We're talking about social economic situations. We're talking about prejudice, mainstream ideologies and what have you. It has nothing to do with history, but somehow again it has gotten just misconstrued. And as the educator has said here, I think when this discussion had started, if anyone had asked, where do we teach it or when do we teach it? That discussion was never had. It was pushed to the side. And then all of a sudden everybody came with this thing, oh, we're gonna ban critical race theory. Well, you can't ban something that doesn't even exist. It's not part of the curriculum. You know. So.
And teachers don't develop curriculum. I just want you to know that. We don't. That goes way above our pay grade. No teacher develops curriculum. It generally comes from state down. So if it was being included, guess who was actually including things in there? The history, the things that were being taught or they were required to teach, they come from someone else, not in the classroom.
Can I give one quick example of critical race theory right now? If President Barack Obama had 92 charges against him, do you think he'd be the leading candidate for any political party right now?
He'd be in jail, you know that.
Carry on.
All right, good segue. Okay, because President Obama is also an author, and I don't think. Oh yeah, Donald Trump got ghostwriters. But anyway, and I'm not making it political, but with that being said, the next area is the book banning, right? We talked about the critical racism, so we got two parts in the education discussion.
Yes.
So book banning, you know, I don't know why they would even attempt to ban books, because young people generally, once you do something like that, it brings attention to the book. Now everybody want to know what the book is about. But also, you can't burn down the internet. What do they think this? They think this, you know, 1780s with witch hunts and, you know, Salem witch hunts or whatever. But I don't get it. But in a way, I think it's backfiring, because, you know, these kids and young people and other people, famous people, are going out. The people they listen to is saying, "Get that book." So, gentlemen, let's talk about this book banning thing. Jump in.
Can I hit this first?
Yes, sir.
First of all, book banning is straight out the playbook of authoritarianism. Straight out the playbook.
Yeah.
Okay? That's one thing. This is a sore subject for me personally, because my son was in a book club. It was a book. I'm sorry, it was a book competition last year. They went to, as a team, each school, they have a competition on reading certain books, and they come together and they have a competition on it with different schools. They've canceled it this year because of this, because of certain books out of the library they think could be controversial, et cetera, et cetera. Why? And this is one of the topics when you mentioned about going to the school board. That's one of the things I want to bring to the attention of the county I live in. What's happening there? Because now you're affecting students being able to do something as educational as that. It's just a competition of reading books and then answering the questions as a team in a group setting. Now you've added this to it, to where you're banning certain books and you haven't given a reason why. It's your theory on why the book should be banned instead of factual. That's one of the issues I'm dealing with right now. This just came down last week because my son was in the competition last year. They did well. It's the first time I ever saw it. But now they're going to cancel it for the whole school year because of this.
Richard, I think.
Yes, I wanted to, on the book ban, look as such that when you start looking at banning books, and there's, from what I've seen so far, there's really not a standard criteria as to what should not be in the school system for kids to be able to check a book out for that. So there's no system in place to do that, and then the books that they're trying to ban are based on who wrote the book, and then perhaps what's information in it, but it appears to be more targeted to the authors of the book as opposed to the subject of the book with it, for what I've been able to gather from the book ban. And I think kids should have an opportunity to explore things, because that's what school is all about, being able to learn things and explore things so that you can become a productive adult with it. But if we isolate kids and only allow them to see and read a certain segment of books, then they will be lost when they become an adult and having to deal with the entire society as a whole.
Right. I tell you, if we don't be careful, we're going to revert back to Brown versus Board of Education. And we really got to stand up and have our voice heard. If you recall, back in slavery, the masters had Bibles that they gave out to the slaves, but there was many chapters in the Bible that were taken out.
Redacted. Yes.
So we're seeing this now start all back up.
The slave Bible.
Slave Bible. So again, that's how the attempts to help brainwash and to really take us back. And it's up to us It's up to us to get involved, to go to the school boards, and also to vote. We got to vote the whole ticket. We just can't vote for the president or the governor. We got to vote all the way down to the school board, the school representatives, etc. So we're ensuring that we're putting people in place that are going to represent the best values that we all collectively support.
Once again, if we don't know our history, it's bound to repeat it. So it's not like this is the first time that books have been banned. That's the thing. I think that we're thinking that this is some new thing. This has been an old playbook. Okay, books used to be banned way back in the day, and they were down here in the South. They were unjust to the South when they talk about Civil War and talk about slavery, and so it then became shaped. And so basically, the narrative is trying to be. There's a narrative and a message that is trying to be conveyed, and if anything that deviates from that message, it's an issue and it's a problem. I feel like it is on us to educate our children, educate them, not just the school system's responsibility. I think it starts in the home, and so we need to do a better job moving forward and getting our message out and knowing our history.
But again, I think and it speaks to a lot of things that these fraternities and sororities are taking on. In our youth groups, we're going to have to start having book discussions. You know what I'm saying? But again, it involves the parents involved. You see what I'm saying? But then one of the concerns I have is most of the banning of the books and the individuals that we've seen the high profile, it's been one person who has started it, and how somehow that one person, you know, what about all of the other parents whose children have read these books and they didn't have an issue? Where's your voice? Why are you silent on this? You know what I'm saying?
They're not the people at the school board meetings. They're not the people who are advocating.
Action. You're so right.
They're not showing action. And that's one of the things that we really have to, like you've been saying, we have to hold people accountable.
And there's no system. There's no system.
Exactly.
Absolutely.
There's no system involved when it comes to that. They will hear an individual and then they will react based on one individual. And most of the time it is that kind of gut reaction, and they've overreacted to one situation. I was just so sad when I heard about the teacher that got fired. Even though the tribunal said no. Here comes the school board saying, oh, who you representing? You know,
Because they're outnumbered.
You know,
They're outnumbered 4-3.
oh,
People are held accountable to their constituents.
Yeah.
And when a popular group comes in and they put the pressure on a political agent, what do you think happens? They lean toward whoever has the mic at that time.
and yes.
And before we close out the education piece, we have to not be afraid. We are leaders in the community. People look at us, people listen to us, whether we want to believe it or not. We can't be afraid to connect what's happening in America sometimes to what happened in Europe. This ain't no different than the way, you know, Adolf Hitler and Mussolini, and it's the same place, Stalin, it's the same playbook, and we cannot be afraid to say words like Marxism.
Authoritarian.
Exactly. What do we have to lose? We need to, if we say it, they'll say it. So we have to take the lead on some of this stuff and some of the language and stop using so much of the softball stuff. They don't softball us, right? This is playbook for for what Mussolini, authoritarian.
Yep.
Yes, sir.
So,
Rodney, you know what's interesting what you just said? And matter of fact, you mentioned it in the beginning, authoritarianism. But then think about this. People being quiet, not saying anything, when Adolf Hitler was in the low ranks, guess what happened? We had the Holocaust. If we're quiet at what's going on with basic things like book banning, what we're seeing in the country in general with, hey, you can get away with anything, but you can't get away with those things, then we get to a point where we're going to just say, oh what, roll over and let another Adolf Hitler show up again?
Yes.
We have to be careful to not be quiet, say what needs to be said, but what Rodney said best, call it what it is. Don't give it a politically correct, soft name. Oh, they're not being kind to us. No, just tell it like it is.
Yeah.
That's what we have to do.
Stop allowing them to create the narrative for
Right, exactly.
what defines us, what defines our community. Like the word woke. That woke has become its own definition. I don't even understand woke anymore. It's because they have taken it and used it.
Don't worry, you'll hear it at the end. So, with that being said, let's remember, Maurice, before you go into health and healthcare, Adolf Hitler was elected.
Yes.
Adolf Hitler was elected. All right, Maurice, you got the next.
As we've been talking about great topics already, one area that we have known for many years that our communities have been affected by healthcare. Health, because back when we were in slavery, what did we get? We got the worst of the food. We didn't get the best. We didn't get the lamb chops. We got the scrap. We got the stuff that nobody wanted. We turned it into a meal and made it work for us because that's what we had. Right now in this country, healthcare is not where it should be. There are a lot of states that said, hey, we're not going to take all of the benefits we can have because it doesn't affect all those poor people. Don't worry about that. So just want to ask the question of our team. How does health and healthcare affect those communities, our communities, other communities that are definitely marginalized?
Well, I tell you, one of the things I look at is affordability of healthcare insurance. And a lot of our low and moderate income do not have affordable healthcare. And one of the things that concerns me is that if you look at the financial impacts of going to the emergency room, having a hospital stay, that will financially corrupt a family with those bills for decades. Right. So we have to look at how can we ensure that everyone's covered. What does universal health care look like? Because it's only going to benefit us. It's only going to benefit the economy if everyone's working, if everyone's healthy. And studies have shown that a healthy workforce performs better. So we're hopeful that we can continue to send that message. We're hopeful that we can continue to expand affordable health care to our communities.
And there are a number of examples of it being successful in other countries. This is not an isolated incident. Affordable health care is happening in a lot of different places, and we just don't have a conversation about it. Especially in our communities, it's a possibility. It's definitely something that we can all champion. And it's one of those things that we continue to have conversation about. I mean, especially black men going to get these regular checkups and things like that. We cannot just say we can a bug bite or something like that, something we can ignore. We should be able to go to the hospital and not necessarily ruin our rest of our financial futures by making that decision. That's right.
But I think the emphasis on health care is going to, perhaps we're going to have to redefine it for our communities. To find a health care system or a way of providing health care for our community that works for us. We don't have enough preventive health care, first of all, in our community. We are not eating properly. We are not getting information about nutrition and what have you. I think it starts with that, because again, if we can eliminate some of these problems, we don't have to deal with them down the line. We're going to have to go back to a time. I don't know what happened to free clinics. You know what I'm saying? I don't know what happened to them. I do, but I don't. I know they were forced out simply because healthcare is probably one of the biggest money makers in America. And that's going to be a problem. We're going to have to get a whole new generation of individuals who are going into healthcare, not so much trying to make a fortune, but rather trying to service people. I think so. We're going to have to flip that script a little bit more. We have I think we're going to be involved a lot of Panhandle in a health symposium the latter part of this month over Friendship Baptist Church. And here comes these providers giving all of these free healthcare evaluations and what have you. We've got to get the word out to our people in our community. This is in your community. Come out for it. They can diagnose some of these things. They can give you some alternatives to do some things to reverse some of these conditions. Again, that's the challenge for those of us in the Greek letter community, to make sure when we have these type events that the word gets out and we can get involvement from people.
And we also have to hold our elected officials accountable, because you talked about having healthy food. A lot of our communities are low economic communities are food deserts.
Right.
We talk about it repeatedly. What happened in Jacksonville? That Dollar General was so significant because it was the only thing in the community for the people to go shopping.
Yes.
So we have to address that too, and when we start talking about healthcare.
And I'm gonna have to interject something, and there is a good story to be told. For those who live in the Metro Atlanta area, there was a Walmart on the Martin Luther King there in the AU Center area. They weren't going to open it back up, and of course the big problem was that was the only major grocery store in that area. The good news is Walmart, and they're not doing it out of goodness. Let's get real. They want to experiment and see how this whole concept works, but they are doing a large grocery store in that facility that's going to open up this spring. So I'm praying that it's going to work so that they will do similar things in other communities, so that those areas where they are marginalized on food, that we can that they can be served.
I think that's great. And I think we need to have more community food gardens too. And that's something that we see works.
Right.
And we should have more community food gardens than we do liquor stores.
We also have food deserts if you do that.
We have a lot of food deserts, so let's go ahead and address it. And we have the land. The land is available. We have people that will work it. Let's go ahead and allow people, and let's go ahead and allow the community so we can eat better. We can be more nutritious, because the other part of this is that so many of us don't have life insurance. And so now we're dying at alarming rates. And now we're passing that financial burden on to our families because we can't afford life insurance. But we can help to prevent that with good eating, good nutrition, good exercise, just good, healthy, clean living.
GoFundMe is not a strategy.
Oh, go ahead.
One other point on healthcare is this. Currently in the United States, healthcare is really tied to your employment opportunities. And many of the people that are disadvantaged don't have a job, or don't have a job that they can afford to pay the insurance premiums associated with it. So we need to look at, can healthcare be separated from who you work for, and then going to something similar to a universal healthcare for people, because many people are not working necessarily in a job that will allow them to have to pay for health insurance and all the other necessities of life. So that's one of the challenges that we have too, that should be addressed.
You know, one of the, before you close it out, one reason, because you want to finish.
I want to close it out.
Richard, you took it right out of my mouth. How health insurance tied to employment. Just think about that for a minute and what that sounds like. You don't work. Just think about what that sounds like. But what I want to do real quick, Maurice, before you end it up, I want to tie the two that we've talked about so far, education and healthcare, because they are related. So I think don't quote me on this, but I want to say somewhere around 1972 or whatever, when affirmative action, kind of really took hold. Prior to that, of course, just about every doctor in America was a white man, right? So we know now, after affirmative action took hold, the Supreme Court decided to approve affirmative action. Well, what we saw somewhere between 1973 and 1985, again, don't quote me on these numbers, but prior to that, black doctors were like 2%, 1 or 2%. Okay? That's male and female, it's primarily male. Affirmative action kicks in, and we're talking about education and healthcare, right? And who is getting into the med schools? And so what happened is by 1985, white women became like 35% of the doctors, but however, black doctors had only grown like 1 or 2% in both male and female. So health care is definitely tied into education and what you allow and who to get into medical school and who not to. But Maurice.
What was said here is so amazing. You guys hit it in the right areas. Education, your healthcare is tied to your employment. A lot of people in the U.S. say, well, we don't want medicine like how they have in Canada, how they have it in Europe or the UK. The one thing they do have is everybody's covered. You may not get to pick and choose your doctor if you're not tied to a plan you pay for or a plan for your company, but you do have coverage. That's the difference. You are covered if you are a citizen of that country. And that's the one thing I can say that our country has to stop saying it's only about who can pay, as opposed to everybody pays a little to get the services. Sick people don't help our country go and grow. Healthy people do. And you guys are right on point with everything.
One quick PSA.
Yes.
Men, please get your prostate checked, get your physical.
Yeah.
Black men, please.
Yeah.
Go get your colonoscopy, get your annual physical. That's all I want to say.
You said something that's really important, and I'm going to close out with this. A lot of folks think I should only start doing those things when I'm 45, 50, 60. You do that as early as possible. You know why? A fellow named Chadwick Boseman, Mr. Black Panther himself, came down with a condition that killed him. Why? Some people say, well, he didn't go get himself checked out. Maybe, maybe not. We don't know. But he was a young man. Because you're in your 20s and 30s doesn't mean you don't go to the doctors. You don't go for that ailment. It means you go because the people behind you, known as your family members, your loved ones, they need you here. And don't take yourself out of life because you don't want to go and get the basics done, which is taking care of yourself. Guys, thank you very much for this subject. I'm sure the audience is like, wow, man. They were right on point with that. Right.
Yeah, we're going to go ahead on and go to the, because I know these guys are waiting to get in here. Still waiting to get in here. We're going to go on to our last topic for this panel, which is the wealth gap. I kind of put the wealth gap last because when you look at work, when you look at education, when you look at health, every bit of that creates the wealth gap. Every bit of it. Now, some housing and different things over here that's going to do it as well. But quickly, gentlemen, let's talk about the wealth gap. Actually, I was reading something yesterday, and it actually distinguished between what was it? It's the wealth gap. It's the wealth gap and the income gap. Those are two different things.
Yeah.
So as we go into this topic, think about the income gap and the wealth gap, and do not merge them together, because when we do, it's people like us that lose. So, income gap, wealth gap. Now we're talking about wealth gap, okay? All right, get in.
When we start talking about wealth gap, it is, again, it goes back to having the conversation about what that exactly means. Because there's a misconception in some of our communities. Like for me, I didn't understand credit. I'm in my 40s now. Nobody really had that conversation with me about, what you're supposed to do with your money, how you're supposed to pay, do investments and various things like that growing up. I was supposed to go get a job, retire from that job, and whatever company I'm with, or whatever organization I'm with, I was going to retire. That was my understanding of it. I didn't really look at how other people were gaining and the type of the way that they invested their money and different things like that. It's about the education, having these levels of conversation. I'm gonna give credit to Bobby. When Bobby did an amazing thing in our chapter, he started talking about investments. And for the first time, I felt comfortable because we had that dialogue looking at investments for myself to help build the wealth of my family, to help build the wealth, and set this example for my children one day. So I commend you for that. You did a really good job.
Just real quick on that, a lot of people don't know the difference between wealth and income, as you mentioned, right? So wealth is something you pass along to the rest of your family. That's generational.
Yes.
That's what it should be.
Yes.
Instead of just what you make annually. And that's what people don't understand. So things like your will, trust funds, as we mentioned before, about investing in the stock market or money market accounts, things like that. You know, you mentioned life insurance, things like that are set up so that it passes along once you're gone. What have you left for your children? That's wealth. And a lot of times we don't know the difference. So again, we have to continue to educate ourselves because the gap is so wide, it's going to take generations to catch up.
That's right.
It's going to take that long. However, if we don't educate ourselves, it's just going to add even more time on top of that. So that's
Bobby always tell them wealth is what you leave.
That's right.
That's right.
And income is what you make.
That's right.
So
that's right.
And I think that's a good. Well, I was going to say, in regards to that, our forefathers have helped to build wealth for others on the backs of our ancestors. So they got a leg up. They got a head start. So we're, as you indicated, we're playing catch up. The one thing I will say about the younger generation I'm really impressed with, particularly on the minority generation, is they're believing in entrepreneurship.
Yes, sir.
They're getting out the traditional 9 to 5.
Yes, sir.
They're saying, hey, I can find a niche that I can help bridge what that wealth gap looks like and to set my particular underlings up for generational wealth and returning investments and multiple revenue streams. So I have to commend our young folks for doing that and being very entrepreneurial, because that's something we didn't really study as far as being entrepreneurs. It was pretty much get a job, stay in there, retire after 30 years, and try to leave some funds for your family.
And you know what? Before you go,
Go ahead.
It was a I think it was by mistake. So every time, you know, when we had these you know, we had the housing market in 2008, you know, and all that kind of stuff, the economy went boom. First people they laid off, people look like us, right? Then they had it again, you know, with COVID and everything, right? So what they did is they actually re-wetted the entrepreneurial juices in us. And so it's like, you know what? I'm tired of getting laid off first. And I'm not going back to work.
Right.
So it was unintentional, but I'm kind of glad it happened.
You know, and again, I have 2 points to make. One is, again, it falls on us, those of us who are members of these fraternities, sororities. A lot of our education has started, first of all, with our own membership. I had attended conclaves for the last 35, 40 years. It wasn't until maybe about 20 years ago that we really started talking about building wealth. Before we were talking about budgeting and a lot of how you use your money and stuff like that. But in recent years, we've talked more among ourselves, among building that generational wealth and how to move it forward. The other concern I have is, as I look at a lot of our young people, I wonder if they still understand money and how it works, even though they are making good money. You know what I'm saying? Now, I don't want to, again, like I said, now you can't totally separate income from wealth, because income just kind of decides how you create the wealth. You see what I'm saying? And I see all these young entrepreneurs and these hip-hop artists, and they talking about what they're making, but I don't hear much about their net worth versus those liabilities they have created with all the bling-blings that has no real value, that they can't convert into money or even leverage when it comes time to make that next investment. You go to these clubs and all these fine cars and the indebtedness that they get into with that. I don't know whether, and I'm hoping that there's somebody there, and they have an investment counsel, just saying, okay, you made $2.5 million last year. How much of that are we going to invest so much in this and have so much here for capital investment, you know, in the business and what have you? I'm hoping that there's somebody, because, you know, just because you know how to do rap don't necessarily mean you know how to really manage money. So I'm praying that there is some real substance behind that, you know.
Actually, my point was made. So
He was.
you hit it on the head.
All right, so look, before we close it out and get ready for the next panel, one more time, whether you are on the second panel or not, we're going to go around real quick, look at that camera right there, let everybody know who you are. I want people to know who you are, because they're going to have questions for y'all, I'm telling you. So we'll start with you, Robert Easton.
Well, I'm Robert Easton. I'm president of Lambda Sigma Chapter Phi Beta Sigma Fraternity. Our network or our service area is Southwest Atlanta.
I'm LeVar Thompson, president of the National Panhandle Council of Douglasville. I'm also a proud member of Carrollton Douglasville Alumni Chapter Kappa Alpha Psi.
And I'm Richard Duncan, a member of Phi Beta Sigma Fraternity, Lambda Sigma Chapter in East Point. I'm also a member of the 100 Black Men of Douglasville.
Bobby Fryer, brother of Kappa Alpha Psi Fraternity Incorporated for 34 years. The immediate past pole mark and president of the Carrollton Douglasville Alumni Chapter, located here in Douglasville, primarily in Douglasville, and also serving the Carroll County area.
And again, Martin Raxton, also a member of Kappa Alpha Psi Fraternity Incorporated. I'm a member of the Alpharetta Smyrna alumni area, which is Cobb and North Fulton. I live here in Douglasville, and I also work in governmental entities here in Douglasville.
And I'm Dr. Sean Brooks Mead. I am the Georgia State Director of Alpha Phi Theta Fraternity Incorporated and the past Polaris of the Beta Upsilon Omega chapter.
Okay, let's give them applause. Thank you. All right. So we don't have a lot of money, so we can't go to commercial or anything. So you're about to see a little sausage making. But gentlemen, if you're on, if you're not on panel 2, come on up here.
Yes, it's a pleasure, brother. Good to see you, brother Easton.
I'm with my old mate, brother. Always good seeing you, brother.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
You don't know, brother. Okay. right, everybody, welcome back, welcome back, welcome back. This is our second panel for this edition of the Black Men's Roundtable. And as you know, we're going to be talking about the impact of structural discrimination, bias, and racism. And on this panel, we are going to talk about criminal justice and some other categories. That being said, what we're going to do first, we're going to go around the table just like we did before. We're going to introduce ourselves, and we can start with you, Bill.
Good evening. My name is Bill Payne.
Hold on one second, Bill. I'm going to ask everybody to speak up just a little bit. These microphones are very good, but we want to make sure. Joe, are we doing good over? Okay. Speak up just a little bit for everybody.
All right. My name is Bill Payne. I'm a member of Phi Beta Sigma fraternity, the Lambda Sigma chapter. I currently serve as a chapter treasurer.
Thank you. Good evening. My name is James Broom. I'm a member of Omega Psi Phi fraternity. I also am a member of Beta Lambda chapter. I currently serve as the Government Relations Committee Chair for the state of Georgia.
Good evening. My name is Andre Brantley. I'm a proud member of Omega Psi Phi Fraternity Incorporated, currently serving in Mu chapter. I am the immediate past bossless and currently serving as Region 1 representative of the state of Georgia.
Hello, my name is Devin Conjay. I serve as the president of Xi Chi Sigma of Phi Beta Sigma Fraternity Incorporated, and I'm also the state of Georgia director of Bigger and Better Business.
My name is Frank Payne. I'm a member of the Carrollton Douglasville alumni chapter here in Douglasville. And I'm also wearing a white jacket. So if you guys want to know what the white jacket means, it's once you serve over 50 years in the chapter, you receive the white jacket. This year, I will also have 55 years in the organization.
Good evening. My name is Thomas McAlpine. I'm a brother of Alpha Phi Alpha Fraternity Incorporated. I currently sit as the vice president of the Rho Pi Lambda chapter that's housed here, and we serve the Carroll, Douglas, and Paulding counties. I am not yet a 50-year member, but I am striving to get to that point, so congratulations.
That's what I'm saying, you got tonight.
All right, gentlemen, we're going to jump right into it. Y'all got the first one this time, right?
Oh, yeah, we got the first one.
Okay. Housing. I talked a little bit about how all these things merge together. I think y'all might have heard me a little bit, but let's talk about the importance of housing and how it affects these marginalized communities that we've been talking about so far this evening. So what I will start out with is that I think we're putting together that a lot of this stuff seems to be done by design, right? Some of this stuff is just not. It can't be mistaken because there's a lot of thought, there's a lot of energy put into it. And so when we look at housing this evening, when we're talking about this, I want you to keep that in mind about, this is not a mistake. I don't believe it's a mistake. Not sure whether you believe it's a mistake or not. But hey, let's jump in. Let's get hot.
I'll jump off, Rodney. I think there is some structural racism as it relates to housing, but I also think that there's a deficit in conversations we're having in our own homes. A lot of us grew up in homes, some of us grew up in rental authorities, so you must have that conversation with young people about the importance of housing. That housing, you talked about wealth creation in the previous panel. Housing leads to wealth creation. You pass it on. And understanding, that there are different things you can do. Number two, I think that we must also understand that when we're talking about housing and financing housing, there's different levels to it. We know there's prime mortgages, we know there's FHA, and we know that there's, like you said earlier, what they're targeting were ARMs, adjustable rate mortgages, and so you must understand all of those elements when you're thinking about housing. We know that there's different things working behind the scene against us, but if you don't understand that going in, you're going to start off in the back. And in this current market that we're in right now, especially in Metro Atlanta, we see there's a narrative where people will say, well, I just rent. But rent costs just as much as a mortgage. So, you got to add in credit and all those different things. So last thing I say is that we must have these conversations early about why home ownership is important. And then talk about the different instruments that lead to home ownership, the financing portion, and then how you pass it on.
I want to talk something that Andre, right?
Yeah, Andre.
Well, Andre said, so you talked about the wealth income gap in the prior panel, right? Andre just talked about the significance of housing being a wealth builder. If we take it even a step further, we talk about the values that come with that. So the generation that's coming up, Andre just talked about rent. There seems to be a plague of right here, right now. I want to get my gratification right here, right now. But not understanding that when you purchase a home, and yes, interest rates are crazy right now, but talking with some folks older than me, in terms of when they bought their first house, interest rates were 13, 14%.
Yeah.
We're looking at 7% right now. So there's, yes, it's a stretch, but it's doable, especially if you're comparing it to paying rent. But I bring all this full circle because all this ties together. We talk about the value of preparing for tomorrow, building that generational wealth. Don't sell Big Mama's house when she passes. Keep it in the family. Keep it in the family, build off of that equity. And when we talk about housing, yes, there's some unfair practices and things that we have to talk about as a community, but talk about, most importantly, the value of why it's so important to invest in real estate right now.
And I think just to add to that as well, is we have to be intentional about educating our community about home ownership, right? So that goes into preparing, understanding the different terms that Andre mentioned, and what Thomas mentioned. But basically, we have to basically understand that, okay, if I want to, I have to understand the value that I'm getting into once I purchase my home, but also how to leverage that as an asset to build wealth. So a lot of times we don't understand the difference between renting and owning because we're not educated. So we have to really be intentional about getting educated, doing research to understand what the value is of home ownership.
And I find it interesting that all of these things, all of these ideas build on what the first panel was talking about. Education, being able to critically think about things and not just believe what people told you. Being able to have that educational foundation that allows you then to learn about real estate, to learn about interest rates, to learn about investing, to do those things. Home ownership is probably the best bridge to beginning that wealth building process for your family or for yourself.
And another thing, home ownership, that's our biggest investment. And it starts at home. I got kids. You got to start educating them about the value of having a home. Back in the 70s and 80s, like you said, the interest rates were high. My first house, the interest rate is at 17%, and it didn't stop me. It stopped me because I wanted to own a home. And I remember going out in one of the counties, one of the connecting counties, and my wife and we saw the house that we loved. Okay, went back to the realtor and asked her what the price was. They gave us the price. So we said, hey, that's cool. We can save up and get the down payment. Went back about several weeks later. The house had increased maybe about another $10,000. I said, oh, okay, so something's going on here. And so we said, well, no, we'll come back later. Okay. Went back again. It had increased. So right then, being with the mindset, I said, I'm going to call her and have this thing investigated because right now it looked like I'm being discriminated. They didn't want any people of my color in their neighborhood. So we set up an investigation for it. Now, what I was able to do was find another house that was more comfortable to me that I was able to purchase. I never did deal with that situation to the max because I found something else. But the house that I bought, the real estate person that sold me the house, she sold the house next door to another couple, a white couple. The guy told the real estate person that if she didn't tell him that he was moving to a black couple, that he wouldn't have bought the house. And so, you know, that kind of stuff is out there, but you got to learn how to deal with those particular situations and what sources to use to try to, you know, take advantage of that situation.
If I may correct, I think he's referring to called redlining. Right. If I'm saying it correctly. And history shows that this is something that was happening in many states nationwide. It speaks to what we know, all of us already, you know, as it relates to in the black community, wanting to have and establish home ownership. It's a tax. Make no mistake. I agree with all the sentiments that these brothers have all said. It is a point, though, I do think, where we have to continue to stay on HUD or FHA and so forth, and letting them know we need those programs so we can have equal footing. Because we know by no shape of the imagination is the footing level. And if we don't say something, they're not going to do anything.
Right.
Exactly.
That's right.
And that's just being realistic.
Can I add one other point? Just maybe for some younger people that are listening. Even if you purchase a home like I did, I think my first home was at 8%. You can always, the market ebbs and flows.
That's right.
So refinancing is an option once those rates come back down. And then there's a thing called HELOC that we know about, right? Home equity line of credit. So I just want to say that just in case someone is listening, you know, they want to take something out of their home and pay off some debt or send their child to college and different things like that. I'm a higher ed veteran, so just learn those different tools and principles about housing and home ownership to your advantage.
Can't use those vehicles with rent.
Yeah, yeah.
That's right. You know, what you all say is real important. I've got a son that just bought his first home. He went through one of those programs of, hey, we're going to change the specific neighborhood. Would you like a home? He said, absolutely. He got into the program and he said, man, this is the hardest thing I've ever done. I mean, this is harder than me trying to find a job. It was difficult because there were certain criteria that were in place. But he also realized that some groups may have gotten an easier path than he did. And so I encourage people to definitely work through those programs that are provided by cities and say, hey, look, we're trying to put you into a specific neighborhood. You're a first-time home buyer. Please go through this program that's set up by a lot of city and state organizations, but getting money from the federal government.
Now, another point too, not only is it an investment, it's a tax write-off. Yeah. So you're not going to get the tax write-off rent.
Or buying cars.
That's right.
Well, look, gentlemen, before we close out the housing, who brought up HUD? Was that you, John? Both brought up HUD. So HUD is very, very important, right? The housing urban development is very important. But there's an inside joke right now that Tim Scott got running for president. The senator out of South Carolina. They said Tim Scott's running for HUD. Because what they do is they try to minimize HUD, right? You put a brain surgeon who separated conjoined twins and you just throw them on HUD. Now, this stuff is by design. You're trying to show that it's not important, but you know it's important, right? So I just wanted to talk about that with HUD. But before we close it out, again, as y'all can see, I keep talking about how all this stuff bridges together. And we didn't just come up with these topics just out of the blue. They really do bridge together, as you can see, Bill. And but home ownership is directly related to when we talked about the wealth gap. When we talked about the wealth gap, when we talked about income, and then we talked about wealth, right? The housing crash wiped out black wealth in America because that is where just about most black people have their wealth. But it is housing is definitely tied to generational wealth in America for us, okay? All right, Maurice, you have the next one.
You have a very, very easy topic that we're going to talk about next. Voting rights and voter suppression in marginalized communities and how it affects us from a positive impact, not just our community, but all communities that are not seen as you're somebody. You're a community that we really want to come in and be a part of. And I say that because even though we look at it from our community because of who we are and what we stand for, there are other communities that are marginalized and are treated in such a way. So I know this, like I said, easy topic for all of us. Probably a topic you guys have never heard of.
Well, first of all, let me start by saying that our vote is our voice, right? So what happens is the way that others see that they can control us is by suppressing our voice. So when we choose not to go vote, we're saying we don't want to speak. We don't want to be heard in a particular situation. So when it comes to what they're doing is, instead of saying, okay, hey, you guys can't vote because they can't say that, what they're doing is they're putting in regulations and different rules that basically make it harder for us to go and do something that we're probably apprehensive about doing to begin with. So they're using that as a tool to basically suppress our voice and suppress our power. And that's something that we need to change.
Then they're also playing on the divisions amongst those marginalized communities and other communities. And what we really need to look at is building coalitions across lines. Because just because we have the vote doesn't mean our vote is really going to count if we're not paying attention. The legislature in Georgia is just changed things, and now they're going to try to undermine the district attorney in Fulton County. Take her out of office when she was voted into office. So we have to be careful about not simply voting, but be knowledgeable about who we're voting for, and then follow up. It is an ongoing process. It is not a one and done. It is not a presidential election only. It is city council. It is your local officials, the school board. Talking about education. Voting affects all of those things, and each and every one of us. And so frequently, the sound bites we hear on the news only focus on those top ticket personalities, when really what matters is what's happening in Douglasville, in East Point, in South Fulton, in Union City. It really matters.
What we're seeing here, every topic that you talked about, it's full circle. This we're baking a cake, or this cake is being baked, I should say. We talk about critical race theory, whitewashing history, right? We talk about voter suppression, what we're talking about right now. I think at this table we're preaching to the choir, right? What we need to do, and we are doing, but continue to do, is talk to the youth. Because right now there's a level of apathy, there's a level of comfort. I joke with my wife, when I picked my daughter up, she went to New Manchester High School a few years ago, I was seeing kids driving BMWs and Jaguars in the parking lot. I started out with a beat down Toyota Camry, and I treated it like a Rolls Royce. You're going to tell me that wasn't the best car in the world. The point I'm drawing, the parallel is, there's a level of comfort. There isn't that certain sense of urgency that our grandmothers and grandfathers and parents and others had to deal with, because it was vote or die, essentially, at that point. History is starting to repeat itself.
I think one of the most important things is that, we keep talking about education. We as a fraternity or sorority, we've got to make a change. We've got to get out ourselves and educate the youth as well as some of the senior citizens. We got to get into those nursing homes and get people riled up too, and let them know that they're part of supporting. So we've got to take charge. We can't just sit back and wait for this stuff to happen. It's going to happen. When I moved to Douglasville, been over 30 years, city council, police, all of it was of a different race. And you see what happens. What can happen if we get out and change? We gotta make some changes.
I just want to add that, and this right here, this is what powers that we don't want to see happen. This right here.
Exactly.
It don't matter, you know, the fact that the way I look at it don't matter regardless of what fraternal organization. The point is, we all educated black men, and that's what they don't like. And so in doing that, I do agree with what this brother said about talking with the youth, but I also would say, you gotta remember, talk to those brothers who've been in the prisons. Yeah. Right. Remember to go back and talk to them. And I'll use a quick analogy. So this past midterm, I worked the election. I took off with my job and I worked the election. I live in Gwinnett. So what I did was I would go around my different polling locations. So it so happened one of the polling locations, I stopped at this gas station and I had the little placard that gives you electric protection. So this brother sees me in the gas station. This brother, I already can tell you, he wasn't one that been to college with a degree or nothing like that. Not putting him down, he tatted up. I'm talking about face and hands and whatsoever. But he saw me and he overheard me telling another brother about remembering to vote. So he said to me, why it matters do I vote? What sense do it make? He's like, I've been in prison. What does it matter? I took the time out and stopped and talked with this brother over 30 minutes. By the end of the conversation, he went on and told me, he said, sir, I just want to thank you. He said, based on the way I look, I haven't had people to go and talk to me. You talked to me. You didn't look down on me. You didn't look above me. You just talked to me. He said, now, because he's been in prison, I may not have that right to vote. He said, but I do have kids. And I'm going to let my kids and my lady know, who's younger than me, that they got to remember to go vote. So we got to do those kind of things with those grassroots and being able to connect with those who have been supposedly forgotten about. Because those are the ones who can work to get the message out.
And look, Rowan, he also got a voice. But I want to just plug real quick, man, how me and this brother came together. James Bruin, he organized and led and leads a group called Black Men Vote. So he ain't just talking about the side of his neck. This is how me and this brother came together as one. Appreciate you, brother.
Appreciate you. Add something to what he said. So we got to think about also the number one demographic that doesn't vote. He was hitting right on that youth group, right? And then the first panel talked about what? Book banning. Okay? So the importance of voting was in those books. In those books. And what I mean by that, they saw the civil rights movement and they saw us get things accomplished. They saw us get laws passed. They saw all of that. So if you remove those history books, because they already have the data analytics for the web and those apps, and they know they're not going to those specific sites to learn about the power of voting there, so they know what they're doing, to your point, is targeted, right? And so I've been in higher ed for 14 years. I've been director of admissions at a predominantly white institution, Young Harris, Georgia State, Clark Atlanta, all over. And our kids are coming in with a deficit, gap. And so the most important is K through 5. And if we're not hitting them right there, that foundation, by the time they get here, there's something else that captures their attention, like y'all talked about earlier, entrepreneurship, they're making money, they feel like they have a better life. And you talked about, the other brother talked about them having wealth. And then it dissipates later on. And there's foundations in place. So I just want to plug that about, that ties together.
One last thing on that topic. So as much as we need to educate the youth, something Frank said about, those outside of that demographic, within our fraternal organizations, and we just talked about this at Alpha Phi Alpha's General Convention, the laws throughout the municipalities are becoming slicker and slicker. And we have to continue to educate ourselves to know, if we're working the polls, what is actually legal at this point, right? We know it's unfair, we know voter suppression, the bar is being raised and raised. It behooves us to educate ourselves so we can continue to educate those demographics we need to. So as we talk about that, we have to keep that in mind also.
Yeah, and also not only educate ourselves, but when we actually have these drives, right, and actually talk to people about voting, we need to talk about the issues that impact them. Because now, if I understand the issue and how it will sway based on how I vote, now I can make an informed decision. So we have to be intentional about talking about the issues that we need to vote on.
Maurice, before you close it out, so we need to remember that all politics is local, right? So I tell people all the time, they want to get out every 4 years and go and vote for the president. They'll say, well, there's no election this year. I'm like, yes, it is. It's election every year. There's no off period. There's no off time. There's no practice, for voting. But what I tell people is all politics is local. In other words, whatever Joe Biden going to sign today, it may not even affect you until 2026. But what that county commissioner do, what our local municipalities, our mayors and our mayor pro tems and all that stuff, what they do, it's going to affect you Monday.
Right now.
So that's what we need to understand. It ain't the Supreme Court that blocking our kids up. It's these judges right now who are locking your kids up. So all politics is local.
And you know what, you guys, we could probably talk about this all day. But one thing I can say is, as we all are out there educating our communities, educating the communities that we serve, Douglas, Carroll, Paulding counties, we have to do what one brother says. You got to say, not only let's get you registered to vote, but this is the reason why. There was a gentleman, I'll never forget, when I first moved to the Douglasville and got involved, and we were out doing voter education. We were walking the neighborhood, handing out cards saying, this is what's coming up. Here's information about the election. One guy said, why should I vote? I'm just one vote. I said, let me ask you a question. If I give you one $100 bill, is that $100 or one? He said, that's $100. I said, okay. If each of you, your vote, you, your friend, all these guys, if y'all add all your votes up, that's 20 votes towards whoever that candidate is. But if you don't do anything, that's 0. He caught it because I used money. And I said, that candidate needs your help because that might be more money in your pocket. Or if you don't help him, that might be less money in your pocket. He got looked at me and said, I'll take one of your flyers. I said, thank you very much. He wasn't a registered voter, but he got it. Then he turned to his girlfriend, his mom, his sister. You guys need it because you need to make sure you're getting out there doing what needs to be done. I'll be registered at the next time it is to be the election. And I said the same thing Rodney did. All elections are important. You can't just say, oh, it's presidential only. It's whatever's taking place, whether it's presidential, state, or local. You gotta be consistent.
So before we move on, there was one other theme that kind of seemed to permeate, getting the wrong word, but yeah, permeate the conversation all throughout, and that's how the media tends to misguide the focus, our focus. What we hear about is roadblocks to voting. And I'm not saying there aren't any roadblocks, but that is always the focus. You don't hear about efforts to get around them. We don't need to talk about the roadblocks. We need to solve the roadblocks because they're there. The law's been written. The issues have been placed forward. How are we going to get people IDs? How are we going to get people to the polls? How are we going to do the things that get around the roadblocks that they put in front of us? What are we going to do to help our community, bridge that gap? And I think those are the conversations that people need to have more broadly, in addition to education.
Go ahead, John. Just remember real quick what Malcolm X said, the media is the most powerful engine.
Oh, you talking about the fourth branch of the government?
The power to control the innocent, the power to make the innocent, the power to make the guilty look innocent, and to make the innocent look guilty.
That's right.
That's power.
They control the narrative.
That's right.
So, like he's saying,
that's right.
Think about it. Again, people imagine, man, when we go out, hypothetically, real quick for me, you go out, you have all the fraternities, go out marching, or go out and, giving out flyers
scroll to the polls
about voting. marching, hopping, wherever you want to call it, to the polls. Can you imagine seeing all black men doing that throughout the state of Georgia? That's why when you look at it and you see, I'm gonna tell you this real quick story. I'm gonna laugh at it, but I still remember. I worked the election 4 years ago. So while I worked the election, one of the little election locations I had to go to, this gentleman saw me, had my election protection t-shirt, my mask. This is back when we were at the height of the pandemic. So this gentleman sees me, white gentleman, older gentleman, it's been my father. He looked at me and said, hey, you working this election? I said, yes, sir. Was there anything you needed? Were you able to vote? He said, nope, I had no problem voting at all. So I appreciate your answer. He said, but I'll tell you one thing. I've been living in Georgia over 60 years, and I ain't never seen that many people come to the polls. We know what he wanted to say, but he meant what he said. He just said it in a different way. But he knew what he was talking about. He ain't never seen that. So think about that as we look going forward, because like they say, it don't matter if you're just going to go vote for the dog catcher. We all need to be there to go vote.
That's right. All right, Maurice, two quick notes. I know it's yours. I'm not
go ahead, right?
But two things I thought about, and that is go out and register and fill out the application to become a poll worker. I just did it 2 days ago. With all the stuff I got going on, I still did that to be a poll worker. That's number one. And when you were talking about that one vote, I watch a lot of animal channels and stuff like that, right? But I learned the other day that if you were, I got this right. If you were to add up the weight of all the ants on the earth, they weigh more than all the humans. So just be that one ant. Be the one ant. It makes a difference.
Hey, you know what, guys? Great conversation about voting rights, voting suppression. We all know that a lot of organizations, a lot of states are trying to do the slick way of suppressing our votes. We just have to educate our people. We also have to figure out how do we get around that slickness to make our votes still safe. I'm coming out. I'm voicing my vote because guess what? I want to see the things go right where I am. And then we also have to look at how do we get those slick talking politicians out of office. So Rodney, I will keep this one on you for the next easy subject.
Yeah, it's pretty easy. Our last subject for this panel is, again, when we're talking about the impact of structural racism, of discrimination and bias on marginalized communities, to include ours, criminal justice. I kind of focused this in a little bit. Now, you can go outside of the purview, but I did focus a little bit to wanted to talk about something a little bit more local, and that is the Atlanta Public Safety Training Center, also known as Cop City. I know I sent some information. If you had an opportunity to do the background, or if you just know about it, because I want to know more about it. I was just told some stuff about it that I didn't know, but I can't opine on it because I don't know enough. With that being said, let's open it up with the criminal justice, talking about focusing on the Atlanta Public Training Center, also known as Cop City, or whatever you want to talk about with criminal justice.
So I'll talk specifically about the literature you set out, right? And what because I'm still learning about it myself. In general, though, yes, our police officers and our emergency responders need to be trained, and I want them to be trained. But training is a very general statement. I'm not just talking about the combat and all that comes with it, but we need to learn how to be more empathetic. We need to learn how to more meet people where they are. My grandfather, for example, first African-American cop in Springfield, Massachusetts. They didn't have cars, they walked the beat. And they lived in the communities in which they worked. So they knew the neighbors, they knew the people that they were servicing. There needs to be some sort of getting back to that matter in terms of knowing your community, to talk, to understand what's going on. In the last resort, unless, of course there's extenuating circumstances in each case, but we need to really take the word policing out of it and just really coming back to being stewards of the neighborhood, taking care of individuals within the neighborhood, and supporting and and watching the neighborhood nurture and grow. So I say all that to say, I know there's a lot of back and forth on so-called Cop City. training doesn't just need to be from a combat standpoint, but just overall in terms of how to treat individuals with respect, especially when we're dealing with the mental health crisis, mental health professionals to be in that capacity, and to make sure that protecting and serve is encompassing everybody from all different dynamics.
So you see how you even talked about the health aspect, because where are they putting Cop City, right?
Yeah.
So we've been talking about health, right, and health care, asthma, and all these different things.
Sure.
Well, I'm military, retired guy, Army. And like you said, training is very broad. There, in my opinion, to do tactical operations, right there where people live, the health aspects that can come from that, noise and all kind of things, pollution, diesel fuel all in the air. I just wanted to just put that out there with that a little bit, but I'm just glad, again, tying that health.
You're right.
Because of where they put it at.
But not only all the health, asthma,
and mental health as well.
Right, the psychological aspect of that. If I'm sitting there seeing this across the street, and we talked about, the military state in Germany when you were talking about Auschwitz and all that other stuff in the last panel. From a perception standpoint, what does that do to someone who has an impressionable mind? If I'm a child, especially a child of color, right, and I see that, what is that telling me about my neighborhood and the upbringing that I'm coming around? Are we living in a police state? Again, training is very general, and it hits on all different areas. But we have to look at the perception that it's portraying as well in those types of aspects.
We've talked about leadership. We've talked about our young brothers and sisters getting actively engaged in the process, right? Running for office, civic office, and different things. And so when I look at that, I think about top-down approach. Right now, we have a violent crime gun issue in America, right? There's shooting taking place everywhere, even in my hometown, 3 hours south in small town Georgia. We reduce the restrictions on accessing guns. We're building training facilities, but then we're giving federal grants to combat the shooting. Now, 2 counties in South Georgia, where I'm from, one got $800 and something thousand dollars. The other one got $700,000 to combat violence and shooting within our young. Most of them look like us, or at least that's what the media is going to portray. They're not going to show the other side. But there's a bigger issue here, and it speaks to leadership and us being actively running for these offices and positions. I know the first panel talked on this, and I got my good frat brother sitting in the audience, and it talks about fatherhood. I don't know how many around the table are fathers. So we have to get more engaged in the process so that we can protect spaces like that where they're trying to put Cop City, so we can make sure it's put in the appropriate places and it's holistic. Like you said, it's the health target, the health initiative, and everything that we're doing. But what I'm seeing from a criminal justice standpoint is that it's almost like open season out here. It's open season, and then we're going to allow the cops to do what they need to do. And we have the narrative to prove why this needs to be here, at least from a media standpoint. But then at the same time, we're funding to try to train as if we're trying to target the problem of gun violence. And at the same time, from the top down, we restrict the gun laws. How does a 15, 16-year-old just keep getting their hands on guns?
Not just guns, just automatic.
Automatic guns. AR-15s and different things like that. So we have a very major problem with crime, violent crime, and I think we're seeing politics being played out.
Yeah, I think one of the most important things that I can see is that they need to come together and try to work this problem out. We know it's a problem. It's an environmental problem. The neighborhood is there. What you got?
When you say they, Frank, you're talking about the community and police.
The community as well as the people who are against the facility.
Oh, Cop City.
So, yeah, that are against Cop City. But a lot of those individuals don't live in Atlanta. A lot of them are from out of town, in different states that, but we have to somehow come together, sit down, talk about the situation, because it's something that's needed. We're going to have some kind of training. The location may be not what they want, but it's going to happen. Atlanta is growing.
And Frank, if memory serves me correct, like we talked about, the media controls the narrative, right?
Yeah.
So it's like the media wanted everybody to believe that those people who were against Cop City were out of town.
Right.
But from what I understand, they just voted. They did not voted, but they did a petition.
Yeah.
Okay, you're not from there. You can, and that petition, from what I understand, overwhelmingly supported being against Cop City. If again, I'm not sure, but I'm pretty sure. But again, they wanted that narrative to be that all these people was out of town, and I just knew that wasn't the truth. It couldn't be the truth. Not to say I'm against it or for it. I'm just saying.
They need 70,000.
I think they got it.
They got it.
I'm almost sure they got it, but
that's fine. That would put it on the ballot.
Yeah, because I'm almost sure. I think last week they said they got enough signatures for it to be on the ballot.
Mm-hmm.
But again, somebody,
But Rodney, to your point, every category that's been talked about today on the first panel and this all comes full circle.
What circle?
It comes full circle because if we continue to eliminate certain portions of history or make it seem to be something that it really wasn't, right? We just make it into a Disney movie at some point, right? And if we continue to make folks feel like it's all right to, be lackadaisical or apathetic about what's going on in your city, municipalities, your state, and then federal, right? Because it doesn't matter to you. You're one person. What's my vote? I've heard people say that. But when things like this come about, and then the media controls the narrative in terms of this is why it's good, and these are the folks that don't want it, this is just going to continue to perpetuate itself. So it's just a matter of making sure within our respectful organizations, with our own children, with our children's friends who may not have that guidance or leadership at home, to continue to kind of invoke this type of, dare I say, wokeness for a term of endearment for this generation.
Yeah, again, it comes back to focus.
By burning cop cars, throwing Molotov cocktails at the police, people out there trying to work, that's not going to solve anything. That's going to make the situation worse. That's why you're going to have to, some kind of way, come together and work with the solution.
But part of the issue that I see is those of us around the table don't have the details. Right. And that's an issue. That's a problem. Why was that location chosen? It wasn't just because it was vacant. It's been vacant a long time. People weren't up in arms about the condition of that area. They weren't up in arms and fighting and coming into town from out of town to give a voice to homeless in that area. Why was it important to build it there? What kind of money comes with them building it there? Why can't they do the training in Forsyth, where they have a facility? Beautiful facility. Okay. Why? I mean, the money they spend, they could spend it every year to send people to Forsyth. There's one in Gwinnett, I believe, as well. So why was it so important to build that facility? Those are the questions that people aren't asking.
I think the answer lies in the location.
Right. And what benefits they got?
Yes.
Isn't that space on DeKalb and Fulton County?
Right on the board. Yeah.
Most of it's in the CAB, from what I understand.
But again, it goes back to intentionality, right? It goes back to intentionality, understanding the facts, as this brother said, right? Coming forth and coming together, having some forums so that we can sit down and have those dialogues, and then basically voice our concerns. Because right now, us getting pieces of information and we think it's here, it's not helping us because we don't know the facts. So we gotta get the facts, we gotta go ahead and get together, create a forum and an opportunity and a platform so that people can voice their concerns.
Feel like no. Okay. Great discussion. To close it out, I think that we talk about narratives, we talk about the effect of media and how it's like the fourth branch of government and all of that stuff. And so one of the things words matter, right? And one of the things that I've noticed over the years is that you hear them say, protect and serve, protect and serve, protect and serve. But I think if you look on every single cop car in America, you will see serve first. It's to serve and protect, not protect and serve. Call me out if I'm wrong, but there's over 19,000 police departments in the United States. Every single one of them say protect, serve and protect, but our language says protect and serve. That matters. That matters. Serve the community first. I'm not somebody who believes in defunding police or anything like that, but I am somebody that believes in reimagining police, right? And what we do, how we serve these communities, where the money goes. You know, mental health is a huge portion of that, and police should not be, coming after somebody who's naked and walking down the street with no arm, with no guns or anything.
Right.
So, but yeah. So.
Hey, Rodney, one point.
Yes, sir. Go ahead.
Before you close it out, and I think you were touching on that, and I think even Thomas talked about it years ago. You never heard about issues with the police. In certain cases, you did, but when there were community-based police officers that knew the people in the community and cared about the community, that's when you saw a better relationship. Right now, most of the police officers that work in these municipalities, they don't live there. No. Don't live there. And I have a classic example. When I lived in Fort Lauderdale, Florida, my next door neighbor was a police officer. He worked in Miami Beach. So he had about a 45-minute ride to get to work. But he told me something that I never forgot. He said, Maurice, I've been a police officer 23 years. I've drawn my gun one time, but I've taught people off the ledge every day of the week. And I sat and I listened to him. And my friend was the type of police officer that will pull up a chair, sit down and talk to the wino, the guy that's half naked, talking about snakes and buzzards and stuff. And he would talk to them and say, you know what, how do we do this? How do I help you? But that's what we don't have. A lot of police officers are fearful in the communities that they're working in, and I think that makes them not work with the community better.
But that's why they should also be intentional about creating these platforms where they're engaging with the community so that the community can get to know who they are and they can get to know who the community is.
Thank you, John. All right, before we end, just like with the first panel, we're going to go around and you're going to look at that camera and you're going to tell people who you are.
I am Bill Payne. I'm a proud member of Phi Beta Sigma Fraternity Incorporated, the Lambda Sigma chapter out of East Point, Georgia, and I currently serve as their treasurer.
Okay, excuse me. Good evening. I'm James Bruin Jr. I'm a proud member of Omega Psi Phi Fraternity, Beta Lambda chapter, and I also serve as the committee chair for the state of Georgia for government relations.
Good evening, everyone. I am Andre Brantley, a proud member of Omega Psi Phi Fraternity Incorporated, currently serving in the New chapter here in Douglas, Paulding, and Carroll counties. I'm the immediate past bosses and the Region 1 rep for the state of Georgia.
My name is Devin Conjay. I serve as president of Xi Chi Sigma of Phi Beta Sigma Fraternity Incorporated, and I'm also the state director of Bigger and Better Business for the state of Georgia, and we serve the metro Atlanta area as a whole.
My name is Frank Payne, member of Kappa Alpha Psi Fraternity Incorporated, Carrollton, Douglasville alumni chapter. Also serve on the planning and zoning board for the county of Douglas County, and been a member of the 100 Black Men for about 20 years, and I'm a retired individual.
Good evening. My name is Thomas McAlpine. I'm a proud member of Alpha Phi Alpha Fraternity Incorporated. I'm currently the vice president of the Rho Pi Lambda chapter, which services Carroll, Douglas, and Paulding County.
All right, so before we, Kevin, can I get the mic? Before we, before we go into the audience to see if the audience have any questions for the panel, that's why I brought y'all back up. In fact, y'all can come on around this way. And I'm gonna give this back to you, Kevin. We're gonna do things out of order just a little bit. No, I'm gonna give it to him in a minute. We're gonna do things out of order a little bit today. This time, today we're going to, because of the amount of people we have, it's a little different for us, and I'm going to do all my shout outs and everything, because at the end I think I might miss it after these questions, because we may have to end up going off air and taking questions, continue to take questions for the sake of time. That being said, I want to make sure I shout out Corey Coco, brother. Appreciate you, brother, for everything you do for us on the radio at 104.5, locally and online. You can check him out at radiocondre.com. I want to make sure that I shout out the wonderful staff here at the Blue Rose for the great food and the patience. Let's give them a round of applause. Blue Rose! Blue Rose! Blue Rose! I'm going to slip and say it blew something else.
That's all right. I would have been mad at you.
I would have fixed it. And I want to make sure you check out our recorded episodes of the Black Men's Roundtable on YouTube and on Facebook at dcdems.org. And also, I want to make sure that you know about, we're going to have 2 special roundtables that are going to be coming up. It's going to be a Latino roundtable and an LGBTQ plus roundtable. I won't be the host of either one of those because I don't belong to either one of those communities. But however, the Latino one will be on 26 September and the LGBTQ plus one will be on 17 October, and they will both be at Tito's Lounge at 7 p.m. And Maurice, on behalf of you, brother, thanks for always being there for me. I appreciate it, just in case I don't get to talk to you at the end. And that being said, got all that out the way.
Being such a gracious moderator.
Thank you, brother. Thank you. No, we're getting ready to start now. Okay. Turn it down just a little bit. All right, can they hear me? Okay, everybody in the house, if you have questions for the panel, this is the time to do that. You're going to come up. Kevin, raise your hand. Kevin is going to, he can either come to you or you can come up here if you don't want to be on camera. And he will have this microphone. If you have any questions, I think we'll be able to hear you for the panel. Take it away. And if we go over, we will go over. We will go offline with it. Here you go, Kevin. Oh, okay.
First of all, my name is Marvin Broadwater, Sr., and I served as the 17th Georgia State Representative of Omega Psi Phi. I want to applaud you men. I drove up here from Columbus just to support you all. Support my brothers back there. But I drove up here to let you know this is what's needed, not only in Douglasville, but in every municipality in this state. One thing I did not hear you say, and I'm going to put it on your mind and your heart when you leave from here. We have a problem with our youth all over. But the reason is that no one has talked to their parents. Think about it for just a second. Somewhere in your existence, someone gave you the prime example of what a man should be. Whether it was your father, your deacon, your coach, your teacher, your principal, someone. I'm hard on my generation. I'm 64 plus. I'm hard on my generation because my generation got the sheepskin on the wall. We got the zeros in the bank, but then we didn't go back and pass that baton.
Come in the camera shot. Come in the camera shot. I want people to see you.
So I just want to put on your heart and your mind in your respective organizations that somehow, some way, go out to the single mothers because they are struggling. And the single mothers, I was raised by a single mom, so I know the struggle. The struggle is real. No one wants to absolutely live in public housing. But sometimes you don't have a choice, so you have to make the best. But we are men of success. We are men of power. We are elegant men in this world. And I think it's up to us to give back. So I challenge you, and I place that on your heart, to go back, not only to the youth, but go back to their parents. Thank you very much.
I got a follow-up right here.
But I randomly happened upon this event, and my question was, following up on his, how do you plan to engage young people in this conversation?
I want to talk about that.
Again, I'm LeVar Thompson, president of National Parliamentary Council of Douglasville. I have personally taken it as one of my missions and one of my platforms and one of my things I'm really concerned about. Is because we're constantly seeing examples of youth acting not in the best interest of their own futures in our communities. We recently had an issue at the Arbor Station Mall, and I think I heard about you. We're having conversations. I recently put out a post about bringing parents together along with some members of the D9, having conversations with parents about strategies to help our children make better decisions. I've worked with the Douglas County School Board, and various different organizations in our community, and we were really tackling what type of conversations we need to be having, and having that platform so parents can come out and talk about some of the challenges our students are having. Because we have a lot of talented kids in this community. We have a lot of talented kids all throughout this metro area. But we have to tap into it. We have to be on the ground. We have to be having these conversations. We have to be engaging with parents so that they know that some of the things that we have out here are available for them. I mean, every organization here has something dealing with youth. Every sorority has something dealing with youth. We have the opportunity to make an impact. We just have to be put in a situation where we can actually make that connection so they can see the things that we're doing. So you're going to ask what we're going to do. Just know that we're very soon, we're partnering with D1 Barbershop over there, a couple other people. We're partnering it up with to have more conversations like this about how we can help parents be successful with their children.
And also, if I can follow up on that as well, I too live in the Douglasville area, and one of the things that I like to do is I actually go to their environments. So I volunteer at the schools. I have some of my brothers go volunteer at the schools, go to games, athletic venues, and then we talk to parents, and now we pull parents from those venues, because they all go to games, they all go to these social events, so now that's an opportunity for us to kind of have those dialogues and invite them to some of those events that we're talking about as well.
Andre Brantley, so I am the immediate past Boston State chapter of the Lakeside Phi Fraternity Incorporated, but I'm also the upcoming state marshal for our 60th state meeting. And so we have a mentoring group called Men Modeling Manhood. And so we touch on that. We work with the young men and the parents. We encourage the parents to come out to a lot of different initiatives. So, although we're hosting over on the east side of Stone Mountain, we bring in Douglasville to Stone Mountain. So it's going to be a collaboration between DeKalb County and Douglas County and all the brothers that are coming from around the state. So we're doing things. I also work in Men in Vision. I drive back in my hometown to do it as well. So we're actively engaged. We just got to plant the seeds so it's that root.
Okay, first of all, you got to start at home. You got to educate your kids. And I've been a proud father. I have 5 kids, and 4 of them have advanced degrees. And I do have 1 Marine. And so you got to start at home. But with Kappa Alpha Psi, we have an organization called the Kappa League, which is kids that we mentor. We have about 60 presently of young black men. So it starts right there to get them indoctrinated as to what's going on in the community as well as their education.
Make sure I'm not standing too close. So, along with these other wonderful organizations, same thing with Alpha Phi Alpha. So we are partnering with schools, not only in Carroll and Douglas, but Paulding. We are trying to even start at the elementary and middle school level so they can see. And, you know, we talk about it and we don't take it for granted. We show up in suits just like these other organizations as well, because we believe if they see it, they're going to emulate and replicate that in some sort of capacity. I say that though, but we also recognize the importance to meet them on their level, right? To meet them on their level, to make sure that we're not just standing up and talking. We want to hear from them as well, and we want to hear issues that are ailing them. And I'll be honest with you, some of these sessions have gotten pretty personal. And you know, we respect that, and we make sure that we're active listeners, because for some of them, this is the first time they've been able to say that to someone that looks like that. So that's something that we strongly consider and we're going to continue doing.
I just want to say a shout out to all the gentlemen. All of them seem like they're outstanding gentlemen and well educated. My question is this: we can talk about everything. I need somebody. Let me tell you what I do. My name is Michael Hall. I own a business. I own a water restoration mold remediation. I am a government contractor. I worked all across the country. I've been here, located in Douglasville, for about 4 years, so I'm fairly new. Somebody said, just come out here and just see what's going on. Sure, I'm here. I need you gentlemen to put together a political pact, because we can talk about it, but if you don't put money behind what you're trying to do, it's just all talk. Now, when you're talking about these young youth out here, I'm not part of the Divine Nine. I want you gentlemen to think about, how do you help these gentlemen, these young boys, find a successful job? It may not be very well educated like y'all, but something in the community where they can be a productive citizen. And to me, everybody is not going to have a father like you have, who's an outstanding gentleman. So there's a lot that gets lagged behind. But I'm willing to put up some money for the PAC. See, I believe in political movement. I come from a place, I lived in Houston. I am from the University of Texas Southern. So, just so you know, but I believe in putting your money where your mouth is so that you can move something. My question to all of you gentlemen is, how do you rehabilitate someone that's not habilitated?
Two questions. So thank you for that. I got it. Thank you for that. I'm not sure if you heard, because I know we have some audio issues, inside of here, but just about every one of these organizations that I know of, we have political action committees. We have PACs. Just about every, as a matter of fact, one of the members that was on the panel is the immediate past president of his PAC. Now, you said put your money where your mouth is, and you said that you're really willing to give money. Well, let me tell you something. We coming for you now. Because we have political action committees. But not only that, brother, and I'm not trying to, but at the same time, we also have youth organizations, every single one of us. Now, we can't reach everybody. We can't reach all youth. But of course, if we're going out to the youth, then you do not already have to have a college degree, right? So we go into the areas where we serve, and if you look at where a lot of our houses are, I know people see our houses. They are not in uptown. They might be downtown, but they're not in uptown. So but I appreciate your I appreciate it. Thank you.
I think Rodney basically said everything I wanted to say, but I want to add to the just serve. I do want to add something to just what you said. Now, my question is, besides putting your money up, do you have an apprentice program with your job?
No, I don't. I do.
But that's what I'm saying. But you were able to set that up, and I'm sure if you go to the vocational, Georgia, the vocational educational system,
yes, sir,
they will work with you, and they will identify young people that need jobs and who want to work through a apprentice program if you will provide that help with them. So, you don't necessarily have to have money. Money is out there for them. One last thing I would like to say is the fact that all of us have our programs. We are overwhelmed. Almost every day we're getting calls from parents, single mothers. My son needs to be in this program. My son needs to be in that program. But the problem we have is we just are still struggling trying to get, first of all, the right people. We're not just putting anybody out here in these programs. We got to make sure that these are dedicated people who are willing to give up their times and their money, but then also they have the temperament to deal with these young people. That's all part of it. So it's sad that you don't know about us, but I pray that you will look a little bit harder, because we will take your money.
Yes, sir. Joe, one last one. This is going to be it. I want for James Bruin to get his on the...
I appreciate it. So I'm going to do two things. First off, I'm going to offer an invitation to you to get on our Zoom call for Black Men Vote. Black Men Vote came about as a result of us making sure to get brothers to the polls and voting and the significance of voting. As it encompasses sharing about the different various mentoring programs that we have. So whether it be one who's an alpha, one who's a sigma, one who's a kappa, one who's an iota, one who's an omega, one who's 100 black men, whatever the case may be, we are black men and we want them to be on there. It doesn't matter if you are in a Greek organization or if you are non-degree, you still a black man. So you still can get on this organization. That's the first point. The second point I'm gonna speak to, in regards to what he said with the apprenticeship, I formerly worked in workforce development. So we can make sure we get you in contact with the right people so we can do a workforce development program, whether it be here or whether it be in Houston. So we know we out there. It's about working together. Thank you.
We'll talk. All right. So what we'll do is we will continue. Joe, picking up here. We will continue the questions off air, but for the sake of time, we got a lot of online viewers, and people can't sit down for too long. So we're gonna be heading out as far as offline. But before we do, let's please give one last round of applause to the staff at the Blue Rose. They have been outstanding to me over the past few months, and I appreciate everything they do. With that, again, on behalf of my co-moderator, Maurice Hurry, until next time, stay woke. I told you I was coming out.